Today is Wednesday, February 15th. We'll update you about that deadly mass shooting on a college campus, new details about the victims, the gunman, and even survivors who have now lived through a school shooting twice. Also, former President Trump's first official competitor, who's the latest to announce a presidential campaign. Plus, what new research found about using an epilepsy pill to treat autism? Which popular musician is taking one of the most prominent leadership roles in men's fashion? And are humans becoming obsolete? What professions are at risk of being replaced by robots? Those stories and more news in today's episode. Welcome to The Newsworthy. All the day's news in around 10 minutes. Fast, fair, fun, and on the go. I'm Erica Mandy. Thanks so much for being here. You ready? Let's do this. At Michigan State University, people are understandably shaken as more details start to come out about a shooting on campus. We now know the 3 students who were killed, a sophomore who wanted to become a doctor, a junior who was studying forensics, and another sophomore who was the president of his fraternity. 5 other students were badly hurt, and at last check, they were all still in the hospital in critical condition. Authorities say the shooter also died of a self-inflicted gunshot. So far, police say they aren't sure what motivated him. He had no known ties to the university, was not a student or a staff member. Though his father has told news outlets he might have been trying to apply for a job there. Sadly, mass shootings are becoming all too common in American schools, so much so that some survivors have lived through more than one by their early 20s. One student who was at MSU the night of the shooting says she was also at Sandy Hook Elementary on the day of that shooting back in 2012. Another survived a shooting at her high school less than 2 years ago. Yesterday also marked 5 years since the shooting at Parkland High School in Florida, where 17 people were killed. Now, one of Michigan State's monuments is painted with the words, "How many more?" Memorials and vigils are planned for today. Former President Trump has his first major Republican challenger for the 2024 presidential race. Nikki Haley, who was once South Carolina's governor and then the United Nations ambassador, announced her candidacy this week. This is a turnaround for Haley, since just a couple of years ago, she said she would not challenge her old boss for the White House in 2024. But she's since changed her mind, saying there's a need for a generational change. If she were to be elected president, she would make history in a couple of ways, as the first woman commander-in-chief and the first U.S. president of Indian descent. Haley is not the only Republican expected to fight Trump for the nomination, though. Political analysts have also thrown out names like Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, Senator Tim Scott, former Vice President Pence, and quite a few others. Though for now, Trump and Haley are the only ones officially in the race. On the Democratic side, President Biden has said he plans to seek re-election. One more note while we're talking politics. The longest-serving woman senator in U.S. history decided not to run for re-election. Democrat Dianne Feinstein said at 91 years old, she will finally retire after more than 3 decades on the job. Several high-profile Democrats have already announced plans to run for her seat, including Congressman Adam Schiff and Congresswoman Katie Porter. But so far, Feinstein has not said who she might endorse. There is a new push to send Ukraine more weapons before spring, since that's when intelligence officials expect Russia to launch its next big wave of attacks. The U.S. Defense Secretary told his counterparts at NATO that Russia is planning a surge that's now just weeks away. He says Ukraine is also planning its own offensive, but that allies need to work to make sure the Ukrainians have the armor, firepower, and logistics to make it effective. The U.S. and other countries have already sent Ukraine billions of dollars worth of weapons and ammunition, but the fighting has been going on for nearly a year now, and Ukraine is burning through it all faster than allies have been supplying it. So now the U.S. military is racing to increase ammunition production by 500% within 2 years, pushing production levels not seen since the Korean War. At the same time, the defense secretary says the U.S. and allies are working with Ukrainian soldiers to emphasize training that could save at least some ammunition. New numbers show the pace of price hikes is slowing, but prices are still going up compared to last year. Once again, the federal government released the latest Consumer Price Index, or CPI, which is a key measure of inflation, since it measures what people pay for goods and services. The January CPI was up 6.4% from the same time last year. That was the 7th straight slowdown and well below the peak of 9.1% last summer. But it is still way above the Federal Reserve's annual inflation target of just 2%. This time, most of the increase comes from more expensive gas, groceries, and rent. But there were drops in other things like used vehicles and airfare. Still, stock prices sank in the hours after the report came out. And reports say the expectations are now even higher that the Fed will raise interest rates above 5% in the coming months, a big change from rates near zero just a year ago. As you know, that makes it more expensive for Americans to borrow money. And as people and businesses start borrowing and spending less, inflation is expected to go down. But so far, economists say Americans have not really been cutting back spending, so the economy is still growing. Stay tuned. More news is still coming up, but first, this podcast is sponsored by ZocDoc. Have you ever gone down a Google or social media rabbit hole looking for answers about a health concern? I know I have. And most of the time, it's not all that helpful, or I find a bunch of conflicting information and feel confused, or I realize there are a bunch of so-called experts who don't really have the credentials I can trust. So if you need answers from someone that is not random on the internet and want a trusted professional, ZocDoc is here to help. You can find a bunch of medical professionals that specialize in the care you need, and you can see their patient reviews right there on ZocDoc before you book. ZocDoc is the only free app that lets you find and book doctors who are patient-reviewed, take your insurance, are available when you need them, and treat almost every condition under the sun. No more doctor roulette or scouring the internet for questionable reviews. Go to ZocDoc.com/newsworthy and download the ZocDoc app for free. Then find and book a top-rated doctor today. Many are available within 24 hours. That's ZocDoc.com/newsworthy. ZocDoc.com/newsworthy. Scientists say a $3 epilepsy pill may one day be used to treat autism. So far, it's only been tested in mice, but a peer-reviewed study found it worked well to control certain behavioral and social challenges linked to the disorder. So their findings are being hyped as the closest thing yet to a potential cure. Still, there's a lot scientists and doctors don't know about autism. They're not sure what causes it, and the severity varies greatly across the spectrum, which means it likely won't be easy to treat across the board. Human clinical trials are being planned now. It's been about a year and a half since a cinematographer was shot and killed on a movie set, and now that movie is about to start getting made again with the original cast, even as actor Alec Baldwin and other crew members are facing felony criminal charges over it. The producers of Rust say they're eyeing a spring date to resume production. This week, they announced the hiring of a new cinematographer to replace Helena Hutchins, who was shot during rehearsal by Alec Baldwin's gun. They also say Hutchins' widower will be the film's new executive producer, allowing him to get a portion of the movie's profits. But this time around, working weapons and any form of ammunition will be banned. And there will be 2 new safety officers on set. A documentary will also be made about the completion of the movie and about Hutchins' life and work. Meanwhile, Baldwin and the movie's weapons supervisor at the time of the shooting are still facing involuntary manslaughter charges. The first hearing in their case is next week, and it could go to trial later this year. Hyundai and Kia are offering free software updates for millions of their cars. This is in response to a wave of thefts we've told you about before. Stealing certain models from 2015 to 2019 has actually become a trend on TikTok since they're apparently pretty easy to steal. They don't have the same auto theft prevention technology included in most other vehicles. And because of that, some insurance companies have even refused to offer coverage for them in certain markets. Well, this week, Kia and Hyundai came out with a free software patch to fix the problem. With it installed, the automakers say no one will be able to drive the car without the actual key in the ignition, and the car won't start if the doors have been locked using the key fob. The automakers started notifying owners about these upgrades, and they say they'll be available to most everyone affected in the next few months. It's the largest deal for commercial aircraft in history, and President Biden says it translates to a big boost in American manufacturing. Air India agreed to buy 250 jets from Airbus and at least 220 more from Boeing. Analysts say the deal is valued at around $85 billion. The idea is to create more planes to supply India, which is expected to be the fastest-growing aviation market in the world. But the White House focused mostly on the Boeing part, since that's the American company in the deal. President Biden says the purchase will support more than 1 million American jobs across 44 states and strengthen the U.S.-India partnership. Rapper and music producer Pharrell Williams is taking on a major new role, this time in the fashion industry. Luxury brand Louis Vuitton hired him as its next creative director of menswear. He's taking over for one of the most recognizable fashion designers in the world, Virgil Abloh, who died back in 2021. It might seem like a strange turn for Williams since he's best known for producing hit songs like Happy and Blurred Lines. But he has a history with fashion collaborations too, having worked with companies like Adidas and Chanel in the past. Now, Louis Vuitton CEO says Williams' creative vision, even beyond fashion, will lead the European luxury house toward a new and very exciting chapter. Pharrell Williams' first collection will be shown this summer at Men's Fashion Week in Paris. That's it for the main news today, so now it's time for Work Wednesday, when we break down one interesting career or work-related news story every Wednesday. But first, a break to thank our sponsor, Indeed. You almost never hear in the headlines that great leaders did everything on their own. And there's a reason for that. Great businesses have great teams. And to build a great team, you need Indeed. Indeed is the hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. So don't spend hours on multiple job sites looking for candidates with the right skills when you can do it all with Indeed. Find top talent fast with Indeed's suite of powerful hiring tools like Indeed Instant Match, assessments, and virtual interviews. Hate waiting? Indeed's U.S. data shows over 80% of Indeed employers find quality candidates whose resume on Indeed matches their job description the moment they sponsor a job. I love when a platform makes things easy by providing everything you need in one place. Join over 3 million businesses worldwide using Indeed to hire great talent fast. Indeed knows hiring needs to be cost-effective when you're running your own business. So visit Indeed.com/newsworthy to start hiring now. Just go to Indeed.com/newsworthy. Indeed.com/newsworthy. Terms and conditions apply. Cost per application pricing not available for everyone. Need to hire? You need Indeed. Okay, now back to Work Wednesday. So it's been called the most disruptive technology of the decade, putting entire professions at risk. We're talking about artificial intelligence, particularly popular chatbots like ChatGPT. A McKinsey study found artificial intelligence could displace anywhere from 15 to 30% of workers worldwide by 2030. And unlike with technologies of the past that had blue-collar workers worried about getting replaced, this one has white-collar workers concerned too. For example, experts say in the future, there might not be as much need for computer programmers since ChatGPT can write its own code to program applications and software. In the legal field, some of the basic work could be passed on to ChatGPT, like writing up legal documents. In tests, the chatbot already received passing grades on law school exams and essays. Then there's customer service. Amazon employees tested ChatGPT out and found it does a good job of answering support questions and is great at making training documents. All that said, not a lot of jobs have been replaced yet. As of December, the U.S. economy had 11 million job openings unfilled, and experts say it's unlikely most of those jobs will be taken by AI, since bots can produce errors, misinformation, or bias. At this point, even the tech's biggest supporters say we need to think about AI as a tool to help humans with their jobs instead of replacing them altogether. All right, thank you so much for joining us as part of your daily routine and for sharing the show. We'll catch you up on more news to know tomorrow. Until then, have a great day.